Hello everyone, and today we're going to be taking a look at Despia. Now Despia of course being a pretty solid deck right now with the release of the Guardian Chimera, and it is going to be seeing a large boost in its effectiveness as soon as the Alabaster strike cards come out, like the Mirror Jade and such. So this is a deck that has a lot of future potential and is more than likely going to arrive on a tier list at one point or another in the near future. So it is something that's worthwhile investing into now. Just so you're prepared for it when it does come out. The only big change to the deck from before and after the newest releases is definitely the Guardian Chimera, the newest boss monster for the deck. Basically allows you to pop either one or two cards in your opponent's field and then draw one or two cards from your deck, depending on how many cards you use and where you use them from for the fusion summon. We're going to explain the mechanics of that towards the end, where we're doing the in-depth deck profile, where we break everything down card by card. So if you're interested in seeing something like that, stick around to the end. We have some really entertaining gameplay as well, some really dominating matches against a lot of deck types that people don't like. If you like seeing Eldritch get crushed, stick around for the gameplay. It was a pretty fun match, things like that. So, and if you like what you're seeing and you want to see anything more, feel free to subscribe. We are just the tiniest bit shy of 500. I don't know if we're going to hit it for the end of the month. I don't think so at this point. But we're getting so close. So you know what, I can't even complain. The amount of support we've been getting has been incredible. So thank you so much to anyone who has subscribed, and if you haven't, it doesn't cost you anything. Button's right there, why not? And you can leave comments down below for any sort of suggestions, deck profiles, anything like that that you want to be seeing, and I'll jump right on them. Having said that, let's get into the gameplay, and at the end we'll have a deck profile. So on the game number 1. Alrighty, getting into our first game. Let's see, we're going second here, and the big thing about this deck is it doesn't really mind going first or second. Of course it prefers to go first because you want to set up your branded in red for your Chimera and such, but you know what, it's not a big deal. The deck can really do well either way. We're playing against some Sword Souls here, so another top tier matchup. He's going to summon out his Grandmaster, and Taya's going to send a Sword Soul or Worm Monster from the deck to the graveyard, so he's going to be sending his Ashuna, and the Grandmaster is going to search for his Emergence. Royal Finish Emergence as well, beautiful looking card. He's going to banish the Ashuna to grab a Vishuta from the deck, and Emergence is going to grab him a Protos. Perfect. Okay, so he's going to link 2 into Shaman of the Tenyi. He's going to banish 3 from the grave to summon his Protos, and he's going to lock us out of Dark. So I don't know if you've noticed or been paying attention, but a hell of a lot of this deck is Dark, and right now we can't use Dark. That's a problem. Or is it? We're going to use Polymerization right off the bat. We're going to fuse 2 into Despia and Quirites, which is actually a light monster. Tragedy is going to search our deck for a Despian monster. The Edge Imp Chain is going to search our deck for Freight for Patchwork. Tragedy is going to add an Alabaster to our hand. We can still normal summon dark monsters. So we normal summon one, it gets negated by the Grandmaster. Now, we didn't really care if he negated that or not, because now that he has used his Grandmaster negate, we can use our Quirites to reduce his entire board to 0. Branded opening, discard 1 branded opening to grab a Dramaturge. Again, we need to make sure that we're keeping plenty of resources. We need the branded openings in the graveyard so that we can protect our fusion monsters. We have a plan. We're going to reduce them to 0, we're going to polymerize, and we're going to summon a Despian Prosekion. Prosecion's going to swing into the Protos and take it out. That's going to inflict 3000 damage to our opponent, because once you destroy a monster with a Prosekion, you inflict damage to your opponent equal to its highest stat. So our opponent's going to go for the Shaman play, discard 1 to re-summon the Protos, and then the Protos is going to destroy light. That's why we wanted the branded opening in the graveyard. We saw something like that coming, and then we're going to chain and banish the Sword Soul from the graveyard. So perfect, we've turned this game around massively. Now that light is illegal, we can still use dark. So we're going to summon Alabaster, use branded in red, we're going to return the Quirites to the extra deck. That was a small misplay on my part. I believed I still would have gotten the fusion effect if I had done that, but I didn't, so, lesson learned. We're going to banish a Tragedy to reset it to the field anyway, so it's not as if we're missing out on much. Take out the Shaman, take out the Protos, inflict another 3000 damage with the Prosekion. Really offensive card, so it is. When it comes to like breaking boards, the Prosekion is really strong. Our opponent goes for the Sword Soul of Mo Yi. He's going to summon out the token, and this is when we're going to go for branded in red. We're going to return an Aliber to the hand, we're going to banish Aliber from the field, Tragedy from the hand, and Dramaturge from the hand to summon the Guardian Chimera. Because we use 1 on the field and 2 in the hand, we pop 1, draw 2. Tragedy, of course, searching our deck for another Despia monster, and Dramaturge summoning itself back to the field. So not only do we get the big Chimera, we also summon out the Dramaturge, which is a negate upon the summoning of something from the extra deck. So we pop his token, we were able to negate something he summons from the extra deck, we could steal his monsters from the graveyard. Ultimately, really strong. And look at the hand, we drew into Crossout Designator and Call by the Grave. So that was amazing. Guardian Chimera really sort of helping secure that win there. But ultimately, it was the Persekion that was able to swing over all these huge monsters and get loads of damage across the board. So fantastic game. Honestly, really impressive being able to beat down Sword Souls like that. Let's get into game number 2. And here we have the start of game number 2. We are going second again, and like I said, it doesn't even really make a difference to us. Our opponent's going to go for extravagance here. We're not going to allow that to happen. We're going to ash that. Did he banish 6? He did. So we're going to stop that Pot of Greed. We don't need to be dealing with that this turn. Our opponent's just going to set 3 and pass. Okay, so not a lot of action going on their field. We drew into the theater, which isn't great for us. So what we're doing is, typically with Foolish Burial, you want to be sending the Tragedy to the graveyard, because when it's sent to the grave, you get to search. However, if we send the Dramaturge, what we're going to do is use Branded in Red to return the Dramaturge to hand, and then we're going to fuse the Dramaturge and the Tragedy, meaning we get the effects of both of those monsters instead of just one of them. So it's just a little bit more useful in terms of card advantage. We also use up our effect feeler because, again, our opponent didn't summon anything, so either they bricked or they're playing Eldritch, in which case effect feelers of no use to us anyway. We sort of figured it was going to be the Eldritch option. Summon limit does stop us from summoning more than 2 times, so we do have our 2 monsters face up. We're playing our field spell just because if he clears out our fusion monster and then one of our other monsters, we can resummon a fusion. So, you know, summon limit sort of sucks, but it doesn't stop us at the same time. It's just sort of inconvenient. He sends the Persekion to the graveyard using the Golden Lord. He's going to resummon his Golden Lord now as a 3500 beater. So that does pose a bit of a problem. He's going to swing in, take out our Dramaturge. Unfortunately for him, he doesn't know how to read. And with the field spell, we're able to resummon our fusion monster. If he had taken him out in the other order, we wouldn't have been able to do that. But unfortunately, people don't like reading. So he's going to set his Conquistador here. So he has a pop 1 and he has the ability to summon another Golden Lord. So 3500 attack, indestructible. We can't summon more than twice, and he can pop one of our cards whenever he wants. We're going to use our Fusion Destiny, being limited to 1 very soon. And we're going to summon Aliber here as well. That's our 2 summons for the turn. So we're going to search for Branded in Red for some follow-up. He's going to activate the Conquistador here. We're going to use the Phoenix Enforcer, pop the Aliber, and pop the Conquistador. It's important that we did that because Persekion's only bigger than the Golden Lord because of DPE. He was more than likely going to pop either DPE or the Persekion in order to stop that from happening. He's going to summon out a second Golden Lord here to stop our DPE's direct attack. That's fine. We're going to set Branded in Red and hand it back to our opponent, in which case he's going to set another Scarlet Sanguine. So we're doing pretty good. We're maintaining a lot of control over the field. We have a DPE pop for whenever we want. He's going to return the Golden Lord here to the hand using his card, and he also has the ability to special summon it. We're going to activate Branded in Red, and then we're going to chain to that our DPE to take out that back row card. We're going to return Dramaturge to the hand and then fusion summon into Despia and Quiritis. Now, why would we give up the Persekion for the Quiritis? Well, the main reason being the Quiritis can reduce the attack of all monsters on the field apart from level 8 or higher fusion monsters to 0. And again, if you're paying attention against Eldritch, his only real out, because he's gotten rid of all of his back row, is going to be doing this or swinging over. So we're forcing him into a position where he can't just summon his Golden Lord and swing over. He has to send it from the hand to the graveyard and give up an additional card. Whenever Quiritis is sent to the grave, we grab Aliber. Again, his Golden Lord on the field is still reduced to 0. So Aliber is very, very safe this turn. We grab another copy of Branded in Red for our follow-up, and look, we have 2 monsters on our field. We have monsters in our graveyard, so we have plenty of potential here to take our opponent out. We draw into another copy of Fusion Destiny, not the greatest of draws, but we're not going to have to worry about that for much longer. He banishes DPE, so we're forced to summon Dasher instead. Branded in red, grabbing Aliber back from the grave. We're going to banish Aliber, Dasher, and Dramaturge to go into the Guardian Chimera. Because we use 2 monsters on the field as material, we pop 2 cards, and we draw 1 because 1 material was in the hand. He's going to go for his Elixir. Unfortunately for him, the Guardian Chimera does not target. We can choose whatever cards we want. So he's going to summon another Golden Lord here. Dramaturge of Despia will resummon itself as a 3k beater with a negate. We draw the Call by the Grave, which would have been devastating had the game continued. Fortunately for us, it did not. So our opponent realized, oh, we had lethal. We swing in, we take out both Golden Lords with the Chimera, swing into the Haquero with the Aliber, and then we have 6,300 damage on board. He only had 6,200 life points or whatever. So very, very cool game, very interesting game playing up against Eldritch. And it's not as if they had bad hearts, you know, they had their Conquistador, their Haqueros, they had some Floodgates. So they did play pretty well. They had the necessary resources to win. They just couldn't pull it off against us. So very, very fun game, honestly. This is one of the games that really sold me on the deck. I'm thinking, yep. I think I've only changed like 1 card since this game, but like this really sort of cemented that this deck has potential to me. So, on the game number 3. Alrighty, into our third and final duel. Here we're going first this time. Now we're going to use Branded Opening to send Tragedy to the graveyard to summon Aliber. Aliber and Tragedy will both search, Aliber grabbing a spell or trap, and the Tragedy grabbing us a monster. He's going to Imperm our Aliber. That hurts massively because look at our hand, we don't have any method of fusion. We're going to use Foolish Burial here. We're going to send Ad Libitum to the graveyard. We were just hoping that there was another option. Now, we were going to summon the Edge Imp in an effort to link summon to trigger this guy's effect, but again, I had forgotten at the time, as soon as you activate Branded Opening, you're locked into fusion monsters, so that's not possible. So again, misplay from ourselves. We probably could have set it in defense to trigger its effect on the following turn. Either way, we get Kaiju, so it doesn't matter what we were going to do there, we were going to get messed up regardless. So it does trigger our Edge Imp and Chain, so we're going to go for our Freight for Patchwork. So if we survive into the next turn, we've got potential. The Patchwork is going to help us patch up a lot of our problems, pun intended. Then he's going to spam out a bunch of level 8s here. He's going to go into Draglubion. The number 97 is going to summon from his deck the number 100. Number 100 is going to gain 17,000 attack points, and I'm no mathematician, but I'm pretty sure of that game. Now, why did I want to show that off in particular? That was a bit of a short duel, a bit pathetic. I wanted to show off the fact that the deck still has its problems. If you don't draw into a method of fusion, then you're sort of struggling. That's why even compared to my list, you might want to change a wee card or two to make the actual fusion more consistent. It's not compulsory. Again, you have to accept that sometimes you're not going to draw the right hand, but again, there are certain ways of mitigating that problem. It just does eat into the overall capacity of the deck. But let's dive into the profile and we'll actually get talking about that. Alrighty, getting into the deck profile then, so we're going to start off by doing the same thing we always do. We're going to cut the fluff. So what are we playing that you don't need to be playing? Double Veiler, double Maxi, double Ash Blossom. We are playing double Imperm, double Call by the Grave. And I believe there to be one more, but maybe not. No, okay, that's fine. So, this is the actual core of the deck. You've got 10 additional slots. You can play whatever you want, whether or not you want to increase your fusion cards, whether or not you want to increase your hand traps, do whatever you want. This is just the way I'm playing it, and it's been playing quite well. So we're going to start off at the top. We're going to start with Tragedy. So Tragedy's main effect is that whenever it's sent to the graveyard or banished by a card effect, you can target a Despia monster in your deck and add it to your hand. So this is going to be used to search for the likes of Dramaturge, Ad Libitum, or Aliber. So very, very powerful searching effect. As a backup effect on the following turn, you can also banish it from the graveyard to set a branded spell or trap card in your graveyard, so you can recycle your branded in red, making it again very powerful because this is your primary fusion card. So Tragedy is very, very key. The Edge Imp Chain is part of a patchwork engine that we're going to cover in a second. We have our DPE engine, of course, our Destiny Hero Celestial, Dasher, and Double Fusion Destiny. So just standard DPE action. Fallen of Albaz. Fallen of Albaz is to work alongside the effect of Despia and Quiritis. If Despia and Quiritis is sent to the graveyard, you can summon a Despia monster or an Albaz, Fallen of Albaz from your deck. Now this guy, when summoned, you can discard one card and basically super poly away one of your opponent's monsters. So if they're playing dark monsters, you can go into Starving Venom. If they're playing, you know, basically you've got a few different options. These are the main ones you'll be using. Realistically, those would be it. There's also the option for a few of these different cards. I'll cover the fusion monsters in a second. We're getting off topic. So Fallen of Albaz is to be summoned off of Quiritis and is basically a free super poly. So that's its purpose. Aliber on summon will search for a branded spell or trap card. That's going to be your branded in red, your branded opening, or your field spell. So this guy searches those out. Also, while is it a fusion monster specifically? Yes, if a fusion monster you control is destroyed, this guy can resummon himself back to the field by negating the effect of an opponent's monster. So that's a very useful recursion effect as well, because it works alongside your field spell. Your field spell, when a non-fusion fairy is sent to the graveyard, you get to revive one of your level 8 fusion monsters. So basically, your level 8 fusion monster gets destroyed, right? It's in the graveyard. Aliber activates, resummons itself, negates your opponent's monster. They take out the Aliber, it goes. Then the field spell will bring back the original fusion monster that was destroyed. Resummon Aliber. So it's a bit of a loop. It's very sort of sound for defensive play. So again, pretty useful for follow-up. Dramaturge is one of your big monsters, so he's one of the ones you want to have on your end board. Whenever your opponent summons a monster from their extra deck, you get to negate the effect of a monster in the field. It doesn't have to be the monster they summon. It can be any of their monsters, but most of the time it will be. So very, very powerful card. And how do you summon him? Well, when he's used as fusion material and either sent to the graveyard or banished, he summons himself completely for free. So Dramaturge, free and easy summon, and very powerful effect, as well as just having 3k attack, which is pretty interesting. Ad libitum, when it's used as fusion material, will help you resummon one of your Despia monsters, level 8 or higher fusion monster. So it's fairly simple. I'm not the biggest fan of this card, I'll be honest. It does help you recycle some of your fusion monsters, which is pretty neat. This card will become a lot better in the Fallen of Albaz version of the deck once the Mirror Jade and such comes out. This card will be a hell of a lot stronger. Right now, it's just kind of sort of there. You don't have to play this. I would recommend playing at least 1. I think 2 is fine. A lot of people are playing it at 3. I don't know if I agree with that, but I think 2 is fine. It's still decent material. It helps you recycle a little bit to keep your advantage up, which is something. So that's grand. Now we're playing, again, sticking to the branded stuff for now, we're playing Despia, Theater of the Branded. We've talked about this a little bit. Its recursion effect, its actual primary effect is that it allows you to fusion summon. So it's basically a fusion spell. But it also has the follow-up of, when a non-fusion fairy is destroyed, you get to summon a fusion monster. So very good recurrence as well. This is a very useful card. You may want to play more copies of this, to be honest. In my original version, I played 3. In this version, I think 1 is sufficient because our primary fusion card has changed to Branded in Red. Branded in Red allows you, again, you saw that's a lot in the gameplay. You pick a Despia monster in the graveyard, add it to your hand, and then you can fusion summon. This is primarily going to be used to summon the likes of Chimera, but again, it basically summons out anything you want it to. So Branded in Red is a fantastic card. It's also a quick play spell. You can use it on your opponent's turn, which is what makes it especially useful. Quick play summoning your Guardian Chimera on your opponent's turn is pretty devastating. And last of the branded spells is of course Branded Opening. Discard a card, then special summon a Despia monster from your deck or add it to your hand depending on the circumstances. So Branded Opening is a very powerful card because it will summon out your Aliber to get searching. It'll summon out your Dramaturge as an additional boss monster. It will summon a Tragedy to be linked away or whatever. Well, sorry, to be used as fusion materials. Sorry. This does lock you out of link monsters on the turn you use it, but I mean, you don't really, like, these guys are here for formality, really. The Vertanaconda is the only really useful one. You can replace these two with additional copies of like the Masquerade or something like that, or Quiritis. I just don't have the additional copies, nor have I needed them until today. So I don't think they're necessary to have duplicates of, but they would sure as hell be useful. That covers off the branded stuff. We're also playing a small freight for patchwork engine. So this will add an Edge, Imp Monster, and a Polymerization from your deck to your hand. So you add a Poly, Edge, and Chain. The reason we're using Edge and Chain is because when it's sent to the graveyard, it will search for Patchwork. So it's sort of like it's like a circle almost. So you can use Patchwork to search for Poly in this, use Poly to fuse this with something else, then this will search another Patchwork. So just a bit of a circle, a lot of resource advantage to be gained off of it. This is just a raw +1 as well, helps enable all of your plays with Poly. So Fred for Patchwork is very, very powerful. And then of course the Fusion Destiny stuff, which we've already covered. Moving into the extra deck. So we are playing Super Poly. Super Polymerization is a busted card. It needs no introduction. And we're playing a number of positive targets. We're playing Mud Dragon of the Swamp, 2 monsters with same attribute but different types. Starving Venom Fusion Dragon, 2 dark monsters. Despia, a fusion monster and a dark monster. You've got the likes of this guy, the Predator Plant, whatever that says. Which is 3 dark monsters on the field. This guy's really, really strong because he can negate summons from the extra deck. And we're also playing First of the Dragons, which is not a card I see a lot of people play, but this is just 2 normal monsters. Tokens count as normal monsters, so if your opponent's playing something like the Auroradon engine, you can Super Poly away their tokens, and then, you know, summon the First of the Dragons. This guy can't be destroyed by battle by anything except a normal monster, and is unaffected by monster effects, so he's a pretty difficult thing to get rid of, to be perfectly honest. So this guy is a bit of a problem once he's on the field, and you summon him by fusing together 2 of your opponent's tokens. Loads of tokens in the metagame at the minute, so it's still a very powerful tactic. So you can play that guy if you want. The rest of these guys are mainly here for their fusion materials. Despia, of course, being pretty powerful in that it can negate a face-up monster's effect every turn. That's pretty cool. It's just a little bit harder to summon. Now, in terms of your actual main fusion boss monsters, you have your Despia and Quiritis. Despia and Quiritis will reduce the attack of all non-level 8 or higher fusion monsters to 0 until the end of the turn. Very good at slowing down a lot of OTK decks, and in the Eldritch matchup, it's actually very powerful as well, because Eldritch, yes, while most of their plays occur off of the back of trap cards, by that same token, their actual method of beating you is slapping you over the head with a 25 beater. Or with a 3500 attack beater. So Quiritis, after they summon their Golden Lord from the hand, it's got 3500 attack, it can't be destroyed by card effects. Well, Quiritis can reduce it to 0, and then it's 0 threat. So very, very good in a lot of particular matchups. When it's sent to the grave, it will also summon a Fallen of Albaz or Despia monster from the deck, so a lot of follow-up as well. We have DPE, of course, for the engine. Masquerade. Masquerade I'm not the biggest fan of. I know a lot of people love this card. I think it's fine. I haven't really been summoning it, but basically while this card's face up, your opponent has to pay 600 life points to activate any and every card effect. While it's in the graveyard as well, while your opponent controls an extra deck monster, you can special summon it but banish it when it leaves the field. So it's nice recursion, and the chip damage can add up if your opponent's not smart enough to get rid of it. It's just that in a lot of matchups it's not particularly useful. Moving into Guardian Chimera, this guy is the elephant in the room, the big new boss monster. What does it do? Whenever it's fusion summoned, it has to use 3 monsters with different names, and at least one of them has to be in your hand, at least one of them has to be in your field, right? So 3 different names. Now, the effects he has depends upon the materials, where the materials were when you summoned them. So for every monster you use on your field as material, you pop an opponent's card. For every card you use in your hand as material, you draw a card. So basically he replenishes all of the lost card advantage from using up 3 materials to summon him, and it can really heavily disrupt your opponent's plays. So very, very strong. Whilst Polymerization's in your graveyard as well, it's untargetable, so it's an untargetable 3300 beat stick, and that's why we want to play like the Patchwork engine to make sure we've actually got Polymerization to take advantage of that effect. So again, very, very strong, very absolutely terrifying card, honestly. Being able to quick play summon this off of Branded in red on your opponent's turn makes this guy terrifying. Very strong card. We have Prosekion, Skinion, whatever his name is, whatever it's called. Basically 3200 beater. When he destroys a monster, inflict damage to your opponent equal to its highest stat. Sort of got that Flame Wingman effect. And during the main phase, you can target an opponent's extra deck monster that's in your graveyard and either banish it or steal it, summon it to your field. If your opponent's playing DPE, well, now you're playing DPE. If your opponent's got Baron de Fleur, well, then now you're playing Baron de Fleur. So very, very powerful. It's a little bit specific in its matchups, but even then, being a 3200 beater that's easily summoned, it's also a phenomenal super poly target because it needs 3 monsters and it uses generic light and dark materials. So it's really good super poly target as well. Generally speaking, fantastic card. First, Dark Lord. The first Dark Lord, any 3 dark fairy monsters. While this guy's face up, all of your fairies are untargetable, and he can also pay 1,000 to resurrect a fairy in your graveyard during either player's turn. So he helps protect all of your cards and helps you take better advantage of things like Aliber and Dramaturge by resummoning them again during your opponent's turn to get some additional searching off. Lastly, we have a few link monsters. Pediplant Verite Anaconda for the DPE engine, as well as being able to super poly on a moment's notice, is the most useful of the 2. The other 2 are just here as backup options. I'm not even going to talk about them. These guys can be literally whatever you want. Probably more copies of the fusion monsters would be better. Maybe an extra Coritis and an extra Masquerade. That will probably be better. I just don't have those cards. So do with that as you will. Run whatever additional targets you want. And yeah, that's the deck. It's been a hell of a lot of fun playing this deck. Honestly, it's been a real blast. And I plan to continue playing it off through ranked. And yeah, that's everything I have to say in the deck. If you like what you saw and you want to see more, subscribe. You know where the button is and you know where the comment section is if you want to leave any sort of recommendations or request. And that's where I'm going to leave you. I'll see you all in the next one.